Nigeria is the largest crude oil producer in Africa. The country's economy and budget has been largely supported from income and revenues generated from the petroleum industry since the 1960s. Statistics as of February 2021 shows that the Nigeria oil sector contributes to about 9% of the entire country's GDP. Oil and gas exports accounted for more than 91% of total export. One would be forgiven for thinking Nigerians swim in oil, but no, that is simply not the case. Nigeria imports most of its fuel, and yet a lot of the time faces fuel scarcity. Why? Because Nigeria refineries are not functioning well. Oil refineries use petroleum refining processes and chemical engineering processes to transform crude oil into useful petroleum products, like petrol or gasoline, liquefied petroleum gas, diesel, and kerosene. Nigeria has 4 refineries, 1 in the north at Kaduna, and 3 in the oil-rich Niger Delta region at Warri and Port Harcourt. All the 4 plants are owned by Nigerian government through the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, or NNPC. These assets' installed capacity of 445,000 barrels per day plummeted over the years until the facility got obsolete, while recording massive losses. Despite pumping about 2 million barrels of oil a day, Nigeria refines no more than 100,000 barrels per day, and has to import more than 2/3 of its domestic fuel requirements. In June 2019, when the NNPC released the March edition of its monthly operational data, the nation's 4 refineries were performing at 5.55% of their combined nameplate capacity of 445,000 barrels per day. In the face of very poor performance and large overheads, Nigeria has reportedly spent on the turnaround maintenance for the refineries almost beyond the cost of constructing the assets. While the NNPC has repeatedly said the costs are not readily available, the nation has reportedly staked about $6.1 billion on the rehabilitation of the 4 refineries between 1993 and 2016. In January 2019, the past group managing director of NNPC, my.doculane, made a shocking revelation when he said that the country's refineries have not undergone any turnaround maintenance for an aggregate of 42 years. The implication is that funds allegedly approved for the maintenance of the refineries may have ended up in private pockets. The fact that refineries are producing and performing grossly below installed capacity is an indictment on every past and present government in the country, as well as past and present managements of the NNPC. Even if the refineries are in top shape, their optimal performance still depends on the availability of services from other facilities associated with their operations. The volume of refined products supplied depends directly on availability of crude oil feedstock. If crude oil is lacking because the pipelines are repeatedly attacked by vandals, there is no magic anybody can perform to guarantee sufficient products supplied to consumers. The result would be scarcity and more fuel crisis. The NNPC says its biggest headache to find lasting solution to the fuel crisis over the years has been how to deal with pipeline vandalism. But the deeper issue has to do with reports that pipeline vandalism appears to be a very sophisticated insider crime with connivance of agents linking to even the highest reaches of the NNPC management echelon. To make up for the balance of supply from the refineries, government's only viable option has been to import. Because crude oil and its derivatives, petrol, are subject to the gyrations of forces at the international oil market, a spike in crude oil price directly impacts retail prices of petrol at filling stations. With government opting to subsidize the difference between the landing cost of imported fuel and retail price, it means huge amounts has to be paid as subsidy to fuel marketers for fuel imports. Fuel subsidies in Nigeria are enormous. Nigeria fuel subsidy hits 120 billion naira or nearly $300 million a month, more than the health, education, or defense budget. Official audits and parliamentary investigations say fraud in the system has wasted billions of dollars of government revenue. One of the investigation found that the subsidy regime between 2009 until 2011 was fraught with endemic corruption and entrenched inefficiency. Investigators looking into the subsidy found fuel importers were being paid for 59 million liters a day, while the country only consumes 35 million. Mismanagement and theft by fuel marketers and government officials cost $6.8 billion over 3 years, about a quarter of Nigeria's annual budget. The state-owned oil company NNPC is accountable to no one. coming at a time the country's economy was bleeding from declining revenue earnings. As a result of low global crude oil prices, paying the huge bill became a huge burden and a bitter pill for government to swallow. Apart from unpaid subsidies and differentials in foreign exchange made the new fuel price unattractive for the marketers. The result has been the scarcity and fuel crisis. Despite numerous attempts at reform, Nigeria has never successfully removed fuel subsidies, in large part due to strong popular opposition to reform. Many in Africa regard cheap fuel as their single dependable benefit from the country's misspent oil wealth. When there is drop in global crude oil prices, the landing cost of imported fuel translated to a retail price below the official pump price, necessitating the marketers to pay back money to government in the form of over-recovery. For marketers, the modulated fuel pricing mechanism introduced by government was not a good business, hence their resolve to drop out of the fuel importation program. The modulation mechanism provides an automatic adjustment that regulated retail price of fuel at the pump against the movement of prices at the international crude oil market, to minimize or eliminate subsidy payment. The withdrawal of the independent and major marketers, which accounted for the supply of 55% of the entire national fuel consumption, meant NNPC would move from providing 45% capacity to 80% initially and ultimately 100% of the supply. Out of more than 26,700 filling stations nationwide, only 2,453 stations belong to the Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, MOMAN. NNPC has only 37 mega stations located only in the capital cities in the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. The rest of over 24,226 outlets located in the country's hinterland belong to the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN. Equally, out of nearly 130 fuel depots in the country, IPMAN, MOMAN and NNPC own them in the ratio of 83, 24, 22 respectively. With inadequate capacity of the NNPC in terms of resources to handle the entire importation program and the facilities to store and distribute even the inadequate quantity imported as part of the current fuel supply crisis. The scarcity is simply because the NNPC is unable to import enough to meet growing demand. The problem is worsened by the lack of involvement of the independent and major marketers in the fuel supply program. Even those marketers that had allocations to import and supply petroleum products are unable to do so, due to lack of foreign exchange, following the restriction imposed by the Central Bank of Nigeria on access to forex by some importers. Some fuel marketers are hardly able to access dollars and open letters of credit for their imports. With the price of oil, Nigeria's main export, depressed and foreign exchange reserves dwindling, its central bank is hanging on to its dollars to support the local naira, leaving a dwindling supply of hard currency to buy the imports that are the bedrock of Nigeria. In addition, a large volume of petroleum products is diverted by corrupt senior government officials. These officials connive with marketers and transport owners to divert already subsidized fuel from depots to neighboring West African countries, including Cameroon, Chad, Togo and Benin. In Nigeria, smuggling of fuel is officially unofficial, but unofficially official. The increased smuggling of petrol across Nigeria's borders has put pressure on NNPC to meet the national daily demand, currently estimated at 72.72 million liters. 42 million liters of petrol are estimated to be stolen every day. Investigations showed that the smuggled product goes for between 300 naira and 500 naira per liter in Cameroon, Chad, Niger and Benin. This showed an illegal price incentive of 194 per center, when compared to 162 naira and 170 naira, which the smuggled product goes for domestically in Nigeria. This pricing disparity leads to illicit exports of Nigerian fuel throughout the West African region. In some countries, Nigerian fuel is the primary fuel, the NNPC head said. We are supplying almost everyone in West Africa. The oil sector more broadly is perhaps the best example of the corruption and mismanagement crippling Africa's biggest economy and blocking its potential for growth and development. Corruption in the public and private sectors, government mismanagement, and an inefficient fuel subsidy system are the root causes of the current crisis. Ending fuel shortages for good will require overhauling the energy sector.